As ready as we can
All
be.
right. All right, we're live. Hey, folks. Welcome to an impromptu live stream from OALabs. A lot of information coming at us quickly in the last hour, actually. So, why are we here? Well, there's been some developments around the Conti ransomware group. It seems that one of their affiliates, or possibly a researcher who has access to their backend, we're not sure. Maybe Sean has more information in a minute about that, has decided to dump chat logs and source code for the group. And what we've been doing is from yesterday until the wee hours of the morning, and then this morning we've been pouring through that, trying to get a handle on what this means, what are the takeaways from it, and is there anything we can learn from all this information? What should we be looking at first? What's the most important stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So we just wanted to have a quick live stream to fill you guys in on what our thoughts are right now. Obviously, this is evolving. Like I said, within the last, I think, hour or so, there was another dump that we have to go through. So we don't have all the information yet. So just keep that in mind. Keep the context in mind. We may make mistakes because we don't have all the information, but we're going to do our best. This is definitely a stream. We're definitely live. I can see you in the chat, Alexander Dell. We are certainly live. This is not recorded. Um, okay, so who's with me here? Sean. Those of you who've been with OALabs for a long time know that Sean is my business partner and co-founder of OALabs. He's often behind the scenes, but today he's actually an expert on this topic, so he's on stream. Welcome, Sean. Nice to be here with you on this
Yeah,
exciting morning. So
it's been a while.
it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while since people have seen your face. So what we have here is we have a whole bunch of both source code and chat logs. We have pulled them up in a code viewer. Sean's done some analysis that he's going to go through as well. And I think maybe before we get started, we should probably just pull this up here on screen so everyone knows exactly what we're talking about. There's a lot of people who are reposting the leaks. And I just want to say, this person on Twitter is the original poster. So it's Conti Leaks, all one word, on Twitter. They seem to be the original source for this information, and they're basically they're the person that we're getting this information from. There's a lot of archiving going on. I know VX Underground is archiving some of these leaks, but this is the original poster, and this is the person where we're getting the leaks from. So just so that so everyone's aware. You guys are saying Sean is echoing a little bit. He's roboting hard. Uh-oh, that's not good. Do you want to say something, Sean, and then we'll see if we can't fix your audio a bit?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just say something again and make sure that this is okay.
Yeah. If it's not working right, maybe I can mute when I'm not talking.
Yeah.
Maybe it's picking something
How's the
up.
audio there, guys? Are we okay? I see someone saying, "Where's the green screen?" No green screen today, guys. This is pretty much as live as it gets. We're basically doing this as we're doing the analysis. So I hope that his audio. It's still echoing. Shoot. Um, Here, if I let me mute myself here. I don't know why it would be echoing. That's strange. Uh, oh, I see why. Sorry, guys. Um, there you go. Do you want to say something again, Sean?
Yep,
There we
it's
go.
fixed.
Is that fixed, guys? Let me know in the chat. I want to make sure that it's good before we go forward. Yeah, works. Okay, great. All right, sorry about
Perfect.
that. We literally just set this up. We've been talking on Skype about this and then went live. So yeah, hopefully this is good. Okay, so before we get started, I would just want to give a shout out to Price from the Conti group, who apparently is a fan of our YouTube videos. If you can see here, this is the chat log. So we were we were pouring through it. They watch a lot of YouTube to understand things like I saw them looking at Erlang coding and process hollowing, but they also seem to like the memes. So I saw they're watching our video, and you can see he's telling them to check out 4437 of the video. And so I was like, what did I say at 4437? Was that like something really groundbreaking about analysis? And turns out that no, it's just a it's just a meme. So I guess they oh, no, I don't know. Oh, 40. There we go. There we go. So this is what they're into on their free time. They like the memes. They're watching our YouTube videos. I don't know if they're watching us right now. If you are, hello, welcome. Hopefully we get this right, and if you're in the stream, Conti guys, you can correct us if we're wrong about some of this stuff. Okay, so jokes aside, I think probably what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Sean and have him talk you through some of the chat logs, who are the players here, what they're doing, and I guess with that, take it away, Sean.
Cool. Yeah. So as Sergey said, this started kind of yesterday, today, where as these were being released. We wrote a quick app to kind of visualize the communication lines between people and really try and figure out who are the players within the group. And this led to a few people being highlighted. So we have Defender, Stern, for anyone that's been tracking TrickBot and this overall group for a while, that name might be familiar. Also, Bentley has been pretty interesting. In the chat logs, it looks like he is in charge of their build system or obfuscation system pipeline, which we'll get into a little bit shortly. Mango persona appears to be really involved in Conti-specific operations. And then there was another user, Professor, that was interesting, that they were talking about shipping it was either a firewall or a switch or something from the UK, because you can only buy them on US eBay right now. And they were speaking that he could help ship it through Belarus into Russia. So it was interesting to hear them kind of talk about, how do they get equipment? They talk to each other, how they're going to order it. And, it's pretty much, I'd say, run as a company. Would you agree, Sergey?
Yeah, I
Um,
think so. I mean, one of the big takeaways here that we're learning is that this whole operation is as large as we'd originally believed, maybe even larger. There's more players, and
yeah,
it's run like a professional development organization, like a professional development shop. We'll talk a little bit about the code and the automation that they have going on uh, in a minute. But yeah, basically, this is a large development organization, like a software organization. That's certainly how to approach this, how to look at this group.
yeah, yeah. And we could see that through procurement, them trying to get various antivirus endpoints, ones you see in the enterprise, obviously ordering hardware, talking with each other, how are they going to ship it, into Russia, timelines. And we also saw some monthly burns. So they would do estimates to say this new project will be, $60,000 a month burn. Should we proceed? And that again would be asking Stern, that appears to be one of the leaders of the group, at least based on the limited messages that we have and sort of the back and forth with the type of questions.
Right. Do you want to take us from their chats and then focus in maybe now on the delivery, which I think we both agree is probably the most interesting part of their organization, is how they're getting into companies, how they're farming the access that they have. We can talk a little bit about the malware, the ransomware later on in the stream, But at least in my opinion, it's the least interesting thing. The most interesting thing is how they're actually organizing this operation, and specifically their use of BazarLoader, the affiliations with TrickBot. I know that you've done a lot of research on this, and I don't know if you want to sort of talk about BazarLoader from your reverse engineering perspective, and then how that kind of maps up with the panels that we've seen released here, and basically what we're seeing in the dump here.
Yeah, yeah. So Bazaar seems to be one of their go-tos for the initial loader for a while now. And it will almost certainly lead to Cobalt Strike. So they're not, one important thing to note about the crew is that they don't necessarily rely on all their own tooling. They will mix and match, their custom tooling where it makes sense. They'll use open source or proprietary red team tools to get into companies. And BazarLoader started, way back as something we called Team 9, and there appeared to be two different versions of it. A colleague called it the simple and the advanced version, and it almost looked like they had two competing developers that had a set of requirements, and they built tools. Unfortunately, they went with the advanced one that's kind of evolved since then. But it's interesting to see that hypothesis, and now in the chat logs, we have seen some programming tests for people, right? Like we've seen them actively, at least what appears to be through interviews, having people write code, giving them tasks. So it was neat to see something when we're looking at the binaries and you have a theory, and then you kind of see some of the chat logs, and they're mapping a little bit, which is great. Um, BazarLoader, for those that have looked at it for a while, they have consistently added different types of obfuscation to it. So they'll obfuscate the stack strings with ADV obfuscator. They've done a lot of work with LLVM, and essentially putting it in their pipeline. And that's something we've had theories about looking at the builds. You'd often be looking at a sample within a time range, and there almost appear to be a couple different versions of it at the same time. So one theory was, okay, maybe different people are building it, but it appears that Bentley runs this build pipeline where they actually actively create different types of obfuscated payloads. And then those are in turn delivered to some of the affiliates or whoever is doing the actual intrusions, which was interesting because it indicates that not all people in the group have access to the build system. So there seems to be these circles of trust that they have built in, that you know what you want to request. Hey, I need this loader, but you don't even get access to the system where it's actually admitted or compiled. They'll use like an open source file sharing tool to send it to these affiliates. And that's been something that, was eye-opening to me, right? Like it created even a bigger group of how they seem to operate, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, they seem to be using a lot. So we sort of comb through the chat logs again, focusing on is there third-party collection of the information that we can mine? So are they using other tools that are keeping artifacts around? So we noticed that they like to use PrivNote, which is basically a message expiring system. So you get to read the note once and then it expires. They're using QAZ.im, which is a file sharing application, again, a private file sharing application. I saw at one point they were using send.exploit.in, but that doesn't seem to be a common TTP for them. They are using avcheck.net, which is a sort of a darknet version. I don't know how you would call that. It's like an underground version of VirusTotal, where you're able to privately check your samples against different antiviruses, basically. Here, what I can do is I can pull this up for you guys just so you have an idea of what we're talking about here. I'll just put this on screen for you. So basically, they're using this to kind of validate how their initial stages are being delivered and how they're being detected. I saw in the chat logs at one point they were excited that they had got their own bizarre moniker in an AV detection. So they're saying, look, the AV detection is now detecting us as bizarre, and they're posting screenshots, and one of them sent an example here. So you can see BazarLoader being called out directly on screen here by a AHN lab. I'm not sure. I don't think they were the first ones to do it. It was Windows Defender, I think, who they were talking about. Yeah. So I think that this is they're actually getting their detects from Windows Defender or something like that. But I think it was Windows Defender they were talking about in the chat log. So they are definitely, not only are they monitoring the detections, but they're closely monitoring how the detections are happening. Now, we're going to mention this because I think it's important for everyone to understand, but we're certainly not pointing any fingers here, and I understand it's a bit of a sensitive topic. It looks like they are trying to purchase antivirus solutions so they can test against them. We're not going to call out any specific names. Obviously, the chats are public now, so everyone can read through it. It looks like the AV vendors who are more difficult to obtain, who make it more difficult to obtain their solutions, were a little bit better protected in that regard, because you can see them complaining about trying to get access to certain AV to test. So that's something that's really important. I think we've long suspected that this was happening. I think in the AV industry, it's pretty well known that this has been happening, but it's very interesting to see it completely confirmed here, that not only are they routinely testing their builds against antivirus, but they're also trying to basically get access to advanced, like not just antivirus, but EDR solutions so that they can bypass them, which is very interesting to read and confirm. So I guess that's kind of a rundown of the systems that they're using to share their samples and the services that they're using. I think that ties in nicely to something that I wanted to talk about with Sean, because this is something that we had noticed before, and it's very interesting to see it confirmed. And that's that they're using open source obfuscator called LLVM obfuscator to obfuscate their payloads. I don't know if you want to talk through the first time you saw this, Sean, while you were trying to reverse the sample, but I certainly remember the WTF moment as we looked at the binary and we're like, what are they doing? And now we get to see actually
Yeah.
in the chat, as you describe that, I'll see if I can pull up the logs where they're trying to fumble through getting LLVM to work. It's interesting to see them basically researching how to do obfuscation over the chat. If you want to talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit, Sean.
Yeah, that was a sad day or a tough day for me when they finally figured out those compiler flags. Anyone else that have been looking at BazarLoader, they have this integrated in their build pipeline, like we said. Like they run as a true software shop. So you can't solve it for one sample or one set of samples. You have to kind of go up a level and say, all right, how are we going to defeat this obfuscation in a more generic way? Or how are we going to use different techniques, say, to pull the configuration out of it. And it was interesting to see them play with this in the chat logs, and also how they monitor, say, InfoSec Twitter and a lot of the blogs, and they'll react to it, right? They'll put these changes in, and because I want to say they're API forward or automation forward, like kind of in their development, it allows them to very quickly change and implement these different open source techniques. So if there's a new great open source obfuscator that they can use, they put it in their build pipeline. Um,
Yeah,
and it's impressive. Like I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty good system.
yeah, it's clear that they are not just a software development shop who understand development practices, but it's clear that they're doing research and improving their software basically as
Yeah.
the demands arise for it. Sean, you mentioned that they're monitoring blogs on Twitter. Aside from the YouTube videos, we weren't the only YouTube videos, by the way, that they're watching. They're watching other security videos about how process injection works, how it's detected. That's in the chat logs. I also noticed that they call out specifically Lawrence over at Bleeping Computer. It looks like they're taking a close interest on the reporting on them. Lawrence obviously breaking many stories about Conti on Bleeping Computer, which if you guys don't
Mhm.
know, it's a blog that covers security related news. And so he's broken many stories on Conti, and you can see in the chat that they actually monitor that quite closely. They're sending stories about themselves to each other, which is very interesting. And clearly, based on how they're evolving their development practices, they're clearly responding to what they're seeing published about them, and also what they're seeing in engagements. Uh, Again, we had always suspected this, or for a long time we'd suspected this is what was happening, because it was kind of clear when analyzing the malware that they were making things more difficult. But
Mhm.
it's interesting and I guess affirming to see that it's confirmed. These suspicions are confirmed. They are in fact reacting, monitoring and reacting. It was very interesting to see here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to. I guess there's two things we could do. We could talk a little bit more about the delivery. I see they have some more panels related to their spam management, or maybe we can talk a little bit about the trick bot overlap. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that, Sean. Um, I saw there's some conflicting stuff on Twitter. At first, it looked like they were not part of the TrickBot group or not affiliated, because we saw some chat logs where they were saying, hey, these guys are using the same techniques that we're using. I saw that. They noticed from, I believe it was Defer Report, who do a lot of analysis of intrusions, and then they post the report. They report on intrusions that they monitor. So I noticed that they looked at some of those DFIR reports and said, hey, these TrickBot guys are doing the same thing as us. But then later on, as you read through the chat logs, it becomes clear that some of them are, in fact, quite affiliated with TrickBot. It's not like they're separate, completely separate entities. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that a little bit. I know that's something else that you'd looked at in the past.
Yeah, and we've seen some code, or I guess not code overlap, but compiler overlap. So we've seen TrickBot samples, Conti samples, Bazaar samples, built on essentially what's the same Visual Studio system, which was interesting. Uh, but I think with some of the confusion with Conti is that it's more than likely operated as some sort of RAS model. So we're seeing, some of the affiliates that are maybe not part of the core group, and they don't necessarily know how other things are operating within like the overarching organization. They're like, hey, why is TrickBot doing this? And we can see that with Bentley producing builds and then sharing them over the file sharing sites. They have a kind of clear demarcation point between different parts of the org, which has been interesting to see. Now, I haven't seen anything mentioned about Ryuk in the logs, which is interesting, right? Like we know Ryuk should be in there somewhere. Why aren't they talking about it? We're not really seeing it mentioned, or at least I haven't yet. There's just so much data. So there's definitely still some puzzle pieces that we don't know yet. Um,
Yeah, it is early days. Like I said, when we started the stream, we definitely haven't even gotten through, a quarter of the stuff that's been published. We've basically been using grep to search for things that we think are in there to confirm our suspicions. That's how we've been doing the analysis so far. So I'm sure there's more information in there that we don't know about right now. I think it's probably time maybe to talk. I don't know if you want to focus on the panels that were released, the source code for that. I think it's probably worth if I just put it up on the screen. I know you can't see it, Sean, but I'll put up
yeah.
the which is it, backdoor master, I believe is the
Bizarre. Yeah.
that's their Bazaar panel. So it's probably important to note here that aside from the Conti ransomware source, which has a builder, I mean, it is the project to build Conti, we haven't seen any other builders released. So these would be the things that produce the actual payload that's delivered. The source code that we've seen so far has been for panels. So these are how they're actually managing the botnets. So there isn't as I mean, it's interesting to look at the panel interface. I mean, again, I threw this up for a minute so you guys can take a look at it. It's interesting to look at the capabilities from that perspective, but code wise, it's not as interesting to us at least, because a lot of this is pretty standard web development stuff. One thing I do want to note, again, I know you can't see it, Sean, but up on our screen here, if we take a look at the way their Git repos are set up, you can see they are using CI practices. They're using continuous integration stuff. They're using Vagrant. They're using Docker containers. They are a modern development web shop. I think that's probably one of the key takeaways here. Looking through the source code that's been leaked, is that these guys are, they can go toe to toe with any web development shop for, for any startup anywhere. They certainly have their stuff thought out well, and they are using, modern development practices. This isn't like the old days of somebody with like one project file and a bunch of PHP source code files that they copy around to different servers. There's pretty advanced practices here. We can see. I hope you guys can see here. I won't go through each individual file. It's just to give you an idea. Again, you guys can look at the source yourself. There's no point in us talking through stuff that's available for you guys to look at. But basically, you can see here their deployment architecture is all kind of laid out in the source code here. I think also one thing that we do maybe want to talk about is the way that the Conti source was released. It's probably worth touching on that, just so that everybody's aware of how this works. So in the source that was released by the person who's leaking this, they released a archive that had a password on it, and they said that they would only be giving the password out to individuals who they trusted, I guess, or vetted. Then this morning they released an archive without a password, but they took all of the C files out of the locker, so you can't actually compile the ransomware, which is very good. We commend them for doing that. That's a wise
Yeah.
decision. That way we
Yep.
get to look at the code, but nobody can compile it. So that's a good thing. So you can see here you just have the header files, but for the where's the decryptor? So in the decryptor you have the C files. So that is something to note. I will also note that there is a full version of this out there in the wild. I'm not sure how available it is for people right now, but there is, again, there is a full locker out there with the C++ files available, but it wasn't leaked, as far as we understand. It wasn't leaked directly from the leaker. The one that was leaked from the leaker was leaked with a password. So that's worth noting, I think. Is there anything else that you want to touch on, Sean, or should we leave it over to questions now? See what people if people have questions.
No, I think you covered it well. The biggest surprise to me with the backends was seeing some of the CI tooling, right? Like seeing vagrant files, seeing how they're probably not just using SFTP to get in, right? Like they're able to actively deploy out C2s, to servers within the build pipeline,
Yeah.
which is it's super interesting to see.
Yeah, we can see, I just threw up on the screen here, they have a GitLab server that they're operating over Tor. In the source, there are the direct IPs, unmasked IPs for the server. You can see right now, I think they've taken the back end off, so it's not responding. But I took a screenshot just as, so you guys see, to prove that they are using GitLab. That is the back end that they're using, and they are having their developers access it through or via Tor, basically. Again, this is sort of part of the trust model, I think, that Sean was talking about, where things are compartmentalized to a certain degree between the teams. So I think right now is a good time. This is a short stream. Again, it's just our first pass analysis at what's going on here. I'll open it up to questions. If anybody in the chat has any questions, we'll stick around for a few minutes, try and answer anything that you guys have, or take away some stuff to answer if we can't answer it right away. So I'll give you guys a minute. Anybody who has any questions, just let us know in the chat. I'm taking a look at the chat now. Just let me know. Hey Alex, I see you. I don't know what you're sad about, but I see your unhappy face there, Alex. Old colleague in the chat. Not sure if we have any questions here. If we don't have any questions, we will wrap up Oh, we have something here. Did they have any crypto obfuscation source in there? They did not. The best we've been able to do is recover the names of the crypting tools that they're using. They do use an in-house crypter or packer in-house. And the obfuscator is a open source obfuscator called LLVM, and they have a patch that they apply to it. We don't have the source code for the patch. The patch would obviously be changing it a little bit, so it's not just the default settings, which can be deobfuscated with default deobfuscators or open source deobfuscators. So we don't have source for it, but we know it exists based on the chat logs. We know the file names. We have been searching for them to see if they've been inadvertently uploaded to archives that we have access to. So far, we've been unlucky. We haven't been able to find them, but we are looking for them. What else do we have here? Oh, somebody's mentioning someone's mentioning the job posting, I think. Did you have a link we could show that GitHub page that you found, Sean? I don't know if you have a link to that. There is we did see. I think you might be referencing the fact that they were talking about somebody being hired in the chat. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if we have a link to it. We can put it up on screen. How to remove all my info from the internet? I don't know. I don't know how to do that. If I did, I'd be rich. Um, do we think this means the end of the Conti group? That's an opinion. I don't have any additional information that would be that's non-public about that. My opinion based on the public information is it's probably not the end of them. They've taken setbacks in the past. This is pretty damning. They're pretty exposed here. I would expect to see some changes to the ransomware. The V3, I believe there's a Conti V3 source, has not been leaked, but you can imagine it would most likely be similar to V2, which has been leaked. I could be wrong about that, obviously, but I don't think this is going to be the end of the group. No, I don't know if you
No,
have
and we saw
thoughts.
that
Yeah,
with TrickBot as well. People thought it
exactly.
was the end of TrickBot, right? And again, they monitor blogs. They figure out, it's harder to take down some of the microtech devices, and they just, move C2s there temporarily. And how they compartmentalize some of the, I'd say, more sensitive systems. Obviously, there's a fair amount of code released, but it is backends. Like we're not seeing a lot of the front end code. So there's, who knows how insulated they are in some parts. So yeah, it's all opinion. So I'd say no, I don't think this is the end. It's like they make a lot of money, and so they'll retool and be back.
Yeah, I think we all remember the TrickBot indictments, like Sean said, or basically the attack on their infrastructure. And we also remember the takedown of Emitet, which was very successful for a while, but they came back as well. So, I mean, it's hard to stop groups like this when the monetary incentives, are so strong. It's very hard to stop them. Actually, on that note, I will take a few more questions here. I see there's a few more. But on a more serious note about stopping these guys, I do want to put up something on the screen here that I noticed um, in the chat logs. There is you can put pressure on them. I think it's here. Yes. So I'll just put this up here. This is from their chat logs. This is a link to the Ukrainian arrest of, or I believe, was it Ukrainian or a Russian arrest of Revil, some of the affiliates of Revil. There's a video of that. Obviously, in Europe, in Russia and Ukraine, they video record their arrests. And so, one of the one of the members of the group sent this video to the other members and saying, "This always scares me." So it's clear that they do fear arrest when it's possible to arrest them. They're not untouchable. They do fear it, and it's not like these things are without consequences, and it's not like they don't know that they're without consequences. So on a serious note, yes, we can have an effect on them. These arrests do impact them, and they are worried about it. So that's one takeaway from this. The continued attribution of these actors and pressure from the government on the governments of Russia and Ukraine to arrest these people does help. It does make an impact. All right, some more questions here. More questions about the group, the future of the group. um, how much did they seem to be involved in red teaming versus affiliate operations? There's always been mixed reports. I'm not sure when you were looking through the chat logs there, Sean, if you have some idea of the balance of internal red teaming versus affiliates that they're hiring. I'm not sure myself.
No, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure either.
So we're not sure. I mean, I think it's going to take a fine tooth comb to go through all the logs to get a better handle of exactly how many people are involved and what the roles are. That graph that Sean built is a good start. You can see who the main players are. I mean, that's important. But to map out all the minor affiliates and stuff, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
Some more people asking about removing their info from the internet. We cannot help you with that. Will you be going through the source code of the crypto that was leaked? Yeah, we could do that. Maybe not. This is not the right stream for that. This is a stream of what are the takeaways? What do you need to know now? Again, I think the ransomware itself is probably the least interesting part of this. If you're protecting yourself as an organization, you want to stop the 99% of the intrusion that's not the ransomware. The ransomware is the 1% at the end. So yeah, we can
Yeah.
take a look at that. Maybe on Twitch, we'll look at it as sort of a live take at taking a look at the code. But the focus here, in my opinion, should be on the delivery tactics, the techniques that they're using to get in the network, to pivot in the network, and how that sort of stuff works. That's where you can stop these guys. Let's see what else we have here. Conti Red Team needs security awareness training. Yeah. What about their Cobalt Strike file? I haven't looked through that. I don't know if you looked through that, Sean, through the
No,
Cobalt
I
Strike
haven't had
stuff.
time yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't really touch on that. I think we've talked about Cobalt Strike. We did a live stream with Rob, who's a red teamer. If you guys look on our YouTube channel, where we talked about their Cobalt Strike manual. So this is the red team manual that was leaked a couple months ago. Bad, bad days for the Conti guys. Eh? A lot of the stuff is being leaked. But when they leaked their red team manual, which is basically how to use Cobalt Strike, we did a live stream with a red teamer who walked us through that. So if you're interested in that, I'd say go check out that live stream. It's recorded on YouTube, obviously. For reversing and red teaming, they have different jabbers, so we're not going to see. Okay, that's interesting. All right, that might explain some of the stuff that's missing for sure. Was planning on starting to grep for known big companies that they hit, seeing if they were directly involved. Yeah, I don't know if you, I don't think we want to talk about victims on the stream here. I don't know if you looked at who their victims were, if there's any unknown ones, Sean. I certainly didn't. I wasn't looking for that.
You would see them pop up, and they would talk about how they're going to start releasing data. I'm guessing on the Conti leak site, Conti News. But yeah, I don't think it's all there for people to take a look at. We don't have to call anyone out.
Right. Okay. All right. So if there's any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up here. I will put a link to the Twitter account that is responsible for the leaks, and from their Twitter account, you have links to all of the data that was leaked below the video. So if anyone is interested, I won't be posting direct links to the leaks. I'm worried about TOS for YouTube, but I will link to the Twitter account, which has the links to all of the leaked data if you want to take a look at it. And I think we'll probably do a little blog post at some point with some of the actor communication. I think Sean's going to put that up in a bit. So look forward to that. If you guys haven't already joined our Discord, join our Discord. We're talking about this right now on Discord. The link should be below. If it isn't, I will post it in a minute. And I think with that, I don't see any other questions, so we'll wrap up here. Thanks, Sean, for coming on with such short notice. I know it's been
No problem.
crazy last 24 hours. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. thank you. We will see you soon with some more analysis uh, once we have more analysis. And yeah, don't worry. I see you guys in the chat. I'll put a few links in the chat as well. But we're gonna end the stream here. Okay. All right. Thank
Okay.
you. Thanks, Sean. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.